In our previous videos, we had a look on how to bring in the vulnerability definition information from National Vulnerability Database. We also had a look on the process of enriching it with exploit information from Shodan exploit database. Today we'll have a look at various components of a vulnerability definition and try to understand it from a very high level. As you see on the screen, we have the vulnerability definition with the ID of CVE20190785, which is unique for this vulnerability definition. It states the severity of this particular vulnerability definition. It also states whether this vulnerability has been exploited in the past or not. What is the skill level required to exploit this vulnerability? How this particular vulnerability can be exploited? Can it be exploited remotely? Yes. It also provides the summary of a particular vulnerability, that is the details of that particular vulnerability. In addition to that, in a consolidated form itself, you will be able to see the common weakness enumeration associated with this particular vulnerability definition along with the URL corresponding to it, when this particular vulnerability definition was published and when it was last updated. In addition to that, you get the complete picture of the CVSS 3.0 severity and metrics and CVSS 2.0 severity and metrics, which lists down various parameters related to this vulnerability definition. In addition to that, you also get to know the number of configuration items affected by this particular vulnerability through the count of vulnerable items. Also, you can observe what is the percentage of those particular vulnerable items which have been currently remediated. As we were talking about the vulnerabilities, the configuration items affected by this particular vulnerability, you can get the full list of that in the related list of vulnerable items right from the vulnerability definition. Based on the risk score of these component vulnerable items, the system automatically rolls up the risk rating and risk score of this particular vulnerability definition. The process will be detailed in upcoming videos. In addition to that, it also provides the references for this particular vulnerability with a direct URL to that. Through the integration of Shodan, you can bring in the exploit information related to this vulnerability, which can be looked at further. It also provides the solutions, that is how to remediate this particular vulnerability from the same form itself, that is through the related links. It also provides details about the weaknesses and the softwares which are vulnerable to this particular vulnerability. Scrolling down to the solutions, the solution states how this particular vulnerability can be remediated on a configuration item. So it tells you about the risk rating, the risk score, what is the source of this particular solution, it's a vendor fix or it's a different kind of a fix, whether it requires a restart of the system or not, when was this solution published or last modified, what are the products on which this solution works. So it also provides the vulnerability details, the remediation status. It provides the notes where you can note down several things related to this particular solution. Right from the solution, you will be able to see the vulnerable items for which this particular solution is applicable, the vulnerability definitions on which this particular solution is applicable, the vulnerability groups or the remediation tasks for which this particular solution is applicable, if there are any superseding solutions or preceding solutions that need to be executed after or before application of this solution. In case we are remediating a particular vulnerability and we know the solution of that, we can create and document that particular solution by creating a new solution and associating it with the vulnerability definition for which the solution applies. In that case, the solution can be reused in future. That details about the various aspects about a vulnerability definition, solution and the related exploits. Thank you very much. Have a great day.